What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jaleesa if you're new here, and y'all, it's been a while since we've had a sit down face-to-face conversation, but as you all know, we are slowly approaching the peak travel season, and I wanted to give you all some of my tips and recommendations for anyone who will be traveling this summer with little ones, especially if you're traveling in Europe. As you know, we are a military family and we live in Europe, and so far we have gone to 4 European countries since we've moved to Europe, and there are some things that I have learned since living over here that any parent who is going to be traveling with kids, you all need to be aware of before you visit. So let's jump into this list, y'all. So first things first, if you're going to be traveling to Europe, especially if you're going to be making trips to multiple European cities, know that if you're traveling on these budget European airlines, that they allow you to bring 2 baby/toddler equipment with you free of charge. So let's say you want to bring your child's car seat and their stroller. With a lot of these budget airlines, they will not charge you to bring those equipment pieces. So that's really helpful. I know with our daughter, we pack the entire world. If I could pack our entire house in our suitcase, I would. So it is extremely helpful to be traveling in Europe and knowing that we're not going to be charged an additional price to bring her stroller or anything else. Now, typically when we travel, we only bring her stroller. So anything else as far as major baby equipment, we kind of leave it home, but you need a stroller out here. And I will hit on that a little bit more later on, but if you don't bring anything else, you definitely need a stroller, especially if you have a little one. 2, 3, if they're stroller size and age, you definitely need a stroller when traveling in Europe. Assuming your child is toddler baby age, some of these hotels will have pack and plays and little beddings that your kids can sleep in. So I would recommend asking and booking, like requesting a pack and play in your reservation. I think since we have been in Europe, when we traveled to Barcelona and Prague, both of those trips, we were able to request and book a pack and play, and the hotel was able to provide them. And I love the fact that not only do they provide the pack and play, but like they have like a little mattress in the pack and play. They'll have like sheets and bedding. Like it's not like my experience with our pack and play back in the States, where it was literally just like a little pack and play, a little thin mat, and that's what you got. Like, no, it's literally a baby bed that you can request from the hotel. It's also very nice that she can have her own bed and be comfortable, and we can have our bed without her. So if you're thinking about bringing all of your baby equipment when you come visit Europe, before you bring your pack and play and some type of sleeper for your baby, I would request and see if the hotel that you're going to be staying with can accommodate and provide that. And that's like one less baby equipment that you need to bring with you when you come to Europe. I somewhat touched on this earlier, but if you don't bring any other baby equipment with you, you need to bring a stroller, and not just any stroller, but you need a durable stroller, y'all. Do not come to Europe with one of those cheap Walmart $50 strollers, and that's no shade to nobody. That's no shade to Walmart. I'm not trying to throw nobody under the bus. Those strollers are not built for these European streets. Bring your most durable, sturdy stroller with you, because I'm telling you, when you come out here, you gonna walk. You will walk, especially if you're coming to visit. Now, if you're coming out here to live, especially the spouses that will be coming to live in Naples, you know, Naples, especially the outskirts of Naples, you still need a car to get around. But if you are going to be visiting Rome, Florence, Milan, London, Spain, Portugal, Prague, you know, Norway, like if you're visiting any major large European city, you will be walking. You will be walking and taking public transportation and taxis, and you need a good solid stroller to make it. You need a good solid stroller to make it. So bring your sturdiest, most durable stroller. If you're visiting the countries along the Mediterranean Sea with a little one, be prepared to be carrying your little one and the stroller on these streets. The beautiful thing that I think that draws anyone to these countries along the Mediterranean Sea is just it's off the coast, and these countries in Europe, but particularly along the Mediterranean Sea, have done a magnificent job just like holding on and capturing vintage beauty of their countries, and you love it and you fall in love with it, but they're not the best when it comes to little ones and strollers. It is not the best. You will learn really quickly that traveling with a little one in these countries along the Mediterranean Sea, it can be a task, especially if you're coming to Italy. Again, we live in Italy, and traveling with a stroller is not the easiest. It's not the easiest. If you're going to be traveling to Naples, Rome, and especially anywhere off the Amalfi Coast, be prepared to carry your child and carry the stroller, because the cities they're not the best design for, strollers. It's just really not, especially the Amalfi Coast. So far since we've lived here, we've only gone to Sorrento when it comes to the Amalfi Coast. I don't know if we will get to any other city off the Amalfi Coast. From what I've heard, again, just based on how the city is designed, a lot of the cities in the Amalfi Coast are very hilly. They're not the best cities to be traveling with the stroller. And because of that, it just deters me from going to these cities. I'm hoping that this upcoming summer, my mom will be out here so we can go to Capri and Paciento with, some assistance with my mom. But if that doesn't happen and we just run back Sorrento, I'm okay with that, because I would much rather go to a city and a place where I can easily travel with Parker and her stroller than go to a place where we are going to be having to carry Parker and the stroller. And it's extremely hot in Europe, and especially Italy in the summertime. So again, keep that in mind when you're traveling out here. You're going to be carrying your child, the stroller, and it's gonna be blazing hot. If you're not traveling to any Mediterranean countries, but you're more so traveling to countries that are known to rain a lot, I would recommend buying a rain cover for your stroller. When we were in London, it rained so much and it was like a heavy rain. We ended up buying a poncho, a rain poncho, and kind of configuring that over Parker's stroller so that it acted as a rain cover, and it worked. It worked. We MacGyvered it and it worked out. But I saw so many, I assume locals who had like the official rain cover over the stroller, and I wish we had purchased that before we went to London. So if you're coming in the summer, you may not have to worry too much about that, because I think for most European countries, the abundance and the amount of rain is not a significant impact in the summertime. But if you're traveling over here fall, winter time, and you're going to these countries that rain a lot more, you're gonna want something that's going to help protect your toddler from the rain. Now you could be a G and be like some of the people I also saw last weekend in London, where it was pouring down raining. They were pushing their buggies and they strollers like it won't nothing. Last point about weather and your toddler, we're phasing out of the super cold weather now. But if you're gonna be traveling out here to Europe in December, January next year, and you're going to the European countries that are known to be brick squad cold and have snow, don't go to those places without getting your little one a snowsuit. We went to Prague for Christmas time. It was beautiful. Highly recommend visiting, but it was super cold. Super cold, and it snowed. It snowed at least once, maybe even twice while we were in Prague. And thank God I spoke to my dental hygienist before we went, and he was like, hey, you gotta get your baby a snowsuit because it is extremely cold. Had I not talked to him before we went, I'd have just been like, oh, we'll be fine, it's great. Thank God I talked to him before we traveled because it was extremely cold there. Now, when it comes to traveling, as I've stated, you will be most likely walking a lot. When you visit Europe, that's like one of the benefits of traveling in Europe is a lot of the European cities are so walkable. You're gonna be walking a lot. But don't be afraid to use public transportation with your little one. I know, especially if you have a toddler and a little one that is still stroller size, it can be intimidating and trying to maneuver subways and all that type of stuff, but do not be afraid. I say do it. If you can cut down some of the walking, I would recommend it. Most of the cities and places we have traveled to, we have used public transportation, and for the most part, we've had good experiences. I would say the cities that stand out the most when it comes to public transportation, as far as our best experience, has to be Rome and Barcelona. Traveling on public transit in Rome and Barcelona was the best because one, they had elevator access to the subway. Aside from elevator access, in all of the European cities that we have used public transportation, everyone is really polite and respectful, and if they see that you have a little one, most times people will get up and give you their seat. So let's talk about eating out with your little one in Europe. I would recommend when you are planning your trip that you get an idea of where you want to eat in Europe and also be mindful of their hours of operation. The hours of operation for some businesses and restaurants here in Europe, especially for countries like Italy and Spain, they are very different than what you would experience if you're in the States. They have time blocks where they'll be open in the morning from like 9-10 o'clock to 1-2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they'll break, take a rest, do lunch, whatever, and then they'll open back up from like 4 to 8, or some cases like in Italy 7 till God knows when. And if you have a little one, we all know that your little one is on a eating schedule. I would just recommend planning your meals, keeping in mind those adjusted hours of operation. Now, when you do go out to eat when visiting a country in Europe, there may not be a charge for your little one when you're out to eat. In my experience since being out here, like oftentimes when we go out to eat, I don't feel like Parker is charged, and if she is charged, it's at a significantly reduced rate. Now, there are a few factors that come into play. One, Parker is 2 years old. Another thing to consider is I've also noticed that traveling out here in Europe, the restaurants that we go to, I rarely see them having a kids menu outside of maybe the one burger spot that we like to go to here in Naples. In Italy, I've never gone to a restaurant and they've had a kids menu. The restaurants we go to, they don't. They just bring Parker some pasta. The understanding is either if your child's gonna eat, they're gonna eat something very basic and simple that really is not going to cost the restaurant a large overhead to make that meal, or you as the parent are ordering something and your child's just going to eat a little bit off of your plate. So again, there's a lot of factors that go into this whole like, oh, they may not charge you if you have a kid. So I don't want to put this out here for like people to be like, oh my gosh, kids eat free in Europe. Like, no, I'm definitely not saying that. Now, something else to consider when you come out here to Europe with a little one is make reservations. make reservations for any dinner spot that you want to go to. And even if you don't want to go to, I still think it's a good rule of thumb to make reservations. And in your reservations, make sure you specify if you need a high chair. In our experience, a lot of the European restaurants don't have an abundance amount of high chairs in the restaurants compared to like back in the States. But here, we have been to restaurants where like there's maybe us and one, maybe two other tables who have like toddlers, babies. And if that other table has a high chair, we just SOL. So I would recommend making reservations. Any place that you know you definitely want to visit and go to out here and you have a child, make a reservation ahead of time and book and request a high chair. So something else to consider when you are planning your meals and where you're gonna eat when visiting Europe with a little one is ensuring that you go to a restaurant that is more kid-friendly and family-friendly. I'm not referring per se to like going to a very gimmicky kid restaurant, because I'm not really a fan of going to very gimmicky like kid restaurants myself personally, but just ensuring that the places that you're going to eat can have tables and can accommodate a family, and that you're not going to a place that has more bar seating and lounging and is more for adults. Some of these restaurants are not geared towards family whatsoever. I recall when we went to Barcelona, tapas is a thing. Tapas in Barcelona and Spain, that's a thing, that's a cultural norm. And I was so excited to go to this one restaurant that had a lot of good ratings for tapas, and we rolled up to it and they were like, hey, we can seat you, but it is bar seating at this moment in time. Like, I don't have any tables. If you're coming in here, you're gonna be sitting at a bar table. And it was like 7:30, 8 o'clock. In my mind, I thought, again, coming from Italy, I thought that was still pretty early. So I'm like, at 8 o'clock, you're saying all that is available is bar seating? I was a little annoyed. I was annoyed. I was like, what? You all don't have any tables that we can sit down as a family? And by the time we actually found a restaurant that we could sit at and eat, and we went there, we got there, we were like the only ones there. It was all cool, fine, dandy, whatever. And then maybe 30 minutes to an hour later while we were eating, we realized it was a hookah bar. So like Parker, thank God she was knocked out sleep, but like everybody was coming to smoke hookah. And granted, we were on one side of the restaurant and then the hookah smokers were on the other side. But again, I'm just putting this out here to stress, like, some of these restaurants, like, they will serve you and they will accommodate you, but they may not be the most family friendly and kid friendly. And those are things that you have to realize. We've always tried to find attractions that are going to allow for Parker to get out of her stroller and be busy, burn off some of that energy, and just to help include her and engage her. So I would recommend anyone who's going to be visiting in Europe to do that. I know Rome is a hot spot in the summertime. If you're going to be coming, you're going to have a lot of fun. And if you're coming with your little one, there is a children's museum in Rome. I would highly recommend, if you're visiting Rome and you have a little one, go to the children's museum. I love it. We'll probably end up taking Parker back there in the summertime or sometime soon, because it's a great children's museum. I loved it. If you're going to Prague, there is a sensory museum in Prague, and there's also like a selfie museum. If you're going to London, I did the Peppa Pig afternoon tea. She loved that. There's just a lot of small things that you can find in these European countries and cities that are more kid focused and kid centered, and I would just recommend trying to add that to your agenda. And even if you can't find a tour or an activity or museum that's very kid centered, there's a lot of parks out here. Florence, Spain, like, we did know unique kid-centered activity, but they had great parks that had beautiful views that you can get pictures and videos, and your little one can just get out of their stroller and just walk around and roam. Don't be afraid to book tours. Do not be afraid to book tours. I know as a parent, sometimes you may see some tours on Get Your Guide or TripAdvisor and be like, oh, I really want to do this, but I don't know if I should take my little one. Don't be afraid to book tours. We have definitely booked a couple of like walking tours since being out here, and for Parker, surprisingly, she's really good with them. I guess depending upon your child and the tour that you're trying to do, you know, you have to take that into consideration. The longest tour that we have done with Parker is a 3-hour walking tour in Milan, and we got to see the Last Supper portrait, and our tour guide walked us around the city, and I was a little skeptical because I'm like, 3 hours with a toddler, like, oh my gosh, is she going to cooperate? But it was great. Yeah, honestly, a lot of the tours that we do go on with Parker, she takes a nap. Like, she'll be in her stroller and she will go to sleep. I distinctively remember that tour guide, he was super like, oh, the princess, let's make sure our princess is at the front of the line. So he was really great. For someone who was really concerned, like, is she going to be able to get through these 3 hours? She was an angel. She was great, and the tour was great and accommodating. This tip goes without too much saying. If you're not new to this, you're true to this whole mommying, adulting, parenting life, you know, pack some snacks. Pack some snacks. Don't matter where you're going, where you're visiting in Europe, pack some snacks. Especially, again, when we talk about those adjusted hours of operation, pack some snacks. When we talk about taking long tours, pack some snacks. Pack some snacks. When we talk about being on the plane flight, pack some snacks. Every time we go on a trip, y'all, I go to the mini necks and I go get snacks. And when we are on the plane, Parker's got her tablet and I'm popping her snacks. Get some snacks before you get on the plane to come to Europe. Get some snacks when you're here. Get some snacks. There have been several trips where it's like, oh, we got snacks before we left, and while we're in Barcelona, while we're in Prague, while we're in Milan, we gotta go to a store. We need some snacks. And my final tip is for all the parents out here who are potty training. Again, I'm with you in this potty training journey, y'all. It can be a little bit of a struggle. I do not feel like when traveling out here to Europe, you have to regress in your progress while traveling. If you are potty training, you kind of have an idea of what your child's time frame is, or your gap of like, okay, my child used the bathroom at 1 o'clock, they can go for another 2 hours. Try to incorporate that in your schedule. Just like when you're planning out meals, you have to kind of figure out like, oh, this is my child's normal eating schedule. It's the same with potty training, and work your day-to-day agenda around that. Pull-ups goes without saying. Make sure you have the pull-ups on deck while you're out here traveling. I will say that maybe not so much the restaurants, but the airports and the train stations, especially in Italy, they have little toilets for the toddlers who are potty training. So if you go to the bathrooms, especially like the family bathrooms, they'll have like a big toilet for the mommies, and then they'll have like a little baby toilet for the kids, and so it makes potty training a lot easier to keep up with. Hopefully you all, after this video, you will feel more prepared and confident when traveling out here to Europe with your little one. Hopefully I was able to put you all on game and give you some advice to some things that maybe you weren't thinking of prior to coming out here, but now that you know, you'll, tweak your schedules and your plans to accommodate and make sure your little one's good to go. If you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, please make sure you like it. Liking it helps me to grow as a channel. Comment below if you have any other questions, things that I may not have hit on but you are interested in knowing about before you get out here, and subscribe, y'all. I have a lot more content and helpful videos that will be coming up, and you all know we're going to be traveling soon. Again, we are on the cusp, y'all, of peak travel season, y'all. We've got 3 different countries we will be traveling to in the upcoming months, so you're not gonna wanna miss it. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you in the next video below.